We have major news right now from Capitol Hill where lawmakers who are watching the full video of the strikes, the possible war crimes from September 2nd, well, they say they're horrified because America killed two people who posed no threat to the United States, and it was all captured on video. And they are demanding that the video be made public because right now, folks, this is a war crime, and it's been pretty much confirmed today. Now, whether or not Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump are wrapped up into this, that remains an open question, and the investigation is ongoing. But what we learned today, well, it's very serious, and people need to know about it. So, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Consider subscribing to my Substack. Click the link below to support my work. And it comes as Signalgate, the Inspector General's report, has been released publicly. So, there's a lot to cover right now. So, first, lawmakers are being shown the full video of the September 2nd boat strikes in their meeting with Admiral Mitch Bradley and General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I want you to read this quote from Jim Himes, who's the ranking member on the House Intelligence Committee, one of the most senior people in the House of Representatives. Quote, "What I saw in that room was one of the most troubling things I've seen in my time in public service. You have two individuals in clear distress without any means of locomotion, with a destroyed vessel, were killed by the United States." Now, Himes did go on to say that there was no, quote, kill all survivors order that was reported by the Washington Post. Apparently, Admiral Bradley and General Kane said that such an order from Pete Hegseth was not given. But that does not change the fact that you had two individuals in clear distress without any means of moving, with a destroyed vessel in the middle of the high seas, killed by the United States of America. And that's a video that he is demanding now that the public sees. Whether or not Pete Hegseth was the one who ordered this strike, though, is an open question. It seems as though, at least right now, it was Admiral Bradley, and whether or not the Secretary of Defense knew it, there is a lot of questions, and investigation is ongoing. But let me tell you something. This is very serious, and it really shows that the United States potentially killed two people, who were not armed, had no threat to the United States, a clear violation of the international laws of war, assuming we're in a war. And if we're not in a war, which that's also an open question of what that means, then this would be amount to murder. And it comes as the Signalgate Inspector General's report has been released, and there are two major findings I want to read with you. The first, we concluded that the secretary, referring to Pete Hegseth, sent sensitive, non-public operational information that he didn't determine did not require classification over the signal chat on his personal cell phone. The secretary is the head original classification authority in the DoD based on Executive Order 13526 and DoD Manual 5200.45, and holds the authority to determine the required classification level of all DoD information he communicates. However, because the secretary indicated that he used a signal application on his personal cell phone to send non-public DoD information, we conclude that the secretary's actions did not comply with DoD instruction 8170.01, which prohibits using a personal device for official business and using a non-approved commercially available messaging application to send non-public DoD information. The secretary sent non-public DoD information identifying the quantity and strike times of manned U.S. aircraft over hostile territory over an unapproved, unsecure network approximately 2 to 4 hours before the execution of those strikes, using a personal cell phone to conduct official business and send non-public DoD information through Signal, risks potential compromise of sensitive DoD information, which could cause harm to DoD personnel and mission objectives. I spoke to Congressman Pat Ryan, who himself is a former member of the armed services, about this, and I want you to watch the interview. Let's just jump right into it right now and see what he had to say. Super excited today to be joined by Congressman Pat Ryan from New York, who actually previously served in the United States Army. Congressman, I really want to dive right in because there's a lot of talk about Pete Hegseth, boat strikes, Signalgate. I want to get your reaction. Your colleague, Congressman Jim Himes, recently walked out of an intelligence briefing today with Admiral Bradley and said that what he saw in that room was one of the most troubling things he's ever seen in public service. You have two individuals in clear distress without any means of locomotion, with a destroyed vessel killed by the United States of America. I'm not sure if you saw the video of the September 2nd strikes, but what are your response to that?
So I haven't. Only four folks have seen that video so far this morning,
Okay.
including Jim, who is an incredible patriot and does not exaggerate And so I very much trust and take him at his word. And this is the worst case of what we feared of what the second half of this video would be, which is a grave violation of uh, the manual of the rules of war and the law of war manual, which is the law of war manual specifically is what guides the legal actions for everybody serving in uniform. And it's just not who we are as a country. So we are pushing all of us now. And the president actually said yesterday that he would release this video. So let's hold to that so that all the American people can see what actually happened here. But it's just horrific.
Now, when you served in the United States Army, were you taught if we get an order that's illegal, that violates the UCMJ, that violates the Geneva Convention, were you allowed to say no to that? Or were you supposed to say no?
Yes, particularly as an officer, not only allowed, but you are required. If you know if you know an order to be unlawful, or even if you believe it to be unethical or immoral, you have a responsibility to then go back to the person who gave you that order and say, I don't believe this is lawful or right. Let's have that conversation. Let's have that discussion. That is drilled. I went to West Point for 4 years. It's one of the very first things they drilled into us, one of the very last things they drilled into us. Like, this is life or death stuff, and it's weighty. And one of your most important moral obligations as an officer, in my case, an Army officer, is to uphold the values of this country so that we can maintain the moral high ground. And to see that just absolutely eviscerated by Hegseth, who wrote an entire chapter about this in his insane rant of a book. It's so predictable, but it is particularly what infuriates me about this is it puts our troops, young American men and women who are brave patriots who want to do the right thing, puts them in an impossible position to politicize our military in this way. And so we have to push back on this aggressively.
And I want to talk about Signalgate, but before I do, a lot of people are saying, well, this is a war crime, a war crime. And then I look at it, I'm like, well, are we at war? What's your response to someone who says, are we actually in an armed conflict right now in the Caribbean?
Yeah, so there's really two aspects to this. To nerd out for 30 seconds, I promise
Please.
I'll be. And there's a whole semester of coursework on this at West Point for all cadets and for officers. There's two components. There's just ad bello, which is are you just in going to war? And then there's just in bello, which is your conduct within that war just and moral and legal? I think in both of those dimensions, we are wrong here in what we're doing with these strikes. We're both wrong in a completely pretzel twist of logic, over-lawyered argument that this is somehow a war when it's clearly not. These are criminals, no doubt, and not good people, but certainly don't deserve to be murdered. And I think these are extrajudicial killings, straight up. So one, we're wrong on the logic or rationale or lack thereof to claim this as a war. But then two, even if it were a legitimate military conflict or war, the conduct within that is arguably even more important to uphold our values. And this idea of a second strike directly violates the law of war manual, which is drilled into all of us, particularly at sea. It's actually, when you go into that, the most recent version is from 2023. When you read that through, there are specific cases going back to actually submarine U-boats in World War II where people were violated for these, prosecuted, U.S. officers prosecuted for these crimes for the very same thing.
Now I want to talk about Signalgate because we got this report, 84-page report from the Inspector General. It's pretty damning based on my read, but I want to get your reaction to some of the top lines, including the fact that Secretary Hegseth put American troops and their lives at risk.
Yeah. So I think it's incredibly damning. The Republicans are already trying to spin it. Hegseth's claim of what this is as some sort of exoneration is just utter and complete bullshit. And I don't say that with my partisan hat on. I say that with I served 27 months in combat as a military intelligence officer who handled classified information every single day. I say it with that hat on. I think there's three big takeaways, and I really encourage everybody to read the full report that just came out today. It's redacted, but thankfully it's just lightly redacted. I want to actually read. I think the main takeaway is a line that's in a red box on page 25. If you have 1 minute or 30 seconds, go to page 25 of this report. It says the secretary's actions created a risk to operational security that could have resulted in 1, failed U.S. mission objectives, and 2, harm to U.S. pilots. So you have the Secretary of Defense literally going directly counter to the 2 core components of his which is accomplish the mission and bring our soldiers, or pilots in this case, home safe. And he did the exact opposite. And then he lies about it, because his response to that was, none of the information I shared would have put troops in harm's way. And the IG report directly and explicitly contradicts that. That's, to me, the single biggest takeaway. I think there are 2 other kind of still important takeaways as well, but that's the main one.
If you shared classified information over Signal as an Army officer, what would have happened to you?
I would have been immediately, swiftly relieved of my post. I would have been prosecuted under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, potentially would have served time in jail. And that's everybody. Like, when this first broke earlier this year, the number of inbound texts and messages I got from folks I had served with across the military, separate from any partisan or ideological views, was like, holy shit, if I had done that, I would be in jail. And the fact that everybody is skipping over that, and that there's somehow this double, triple, quadruple standard for Hegseth, is just absolutely outrageous. It's such an insult to the people that actually do the right thing and follow the rules like everybody else in uniform does.
Well, then I got to ask you this follow-up question of, a lot of folks are concerned. Well, you have this Inspector General's report saying that Hegseth put troops' lives in danger. You have this possible war crime that Hegseth may have been a part in, but he's not facing any accountability. So what happens to Hegseth? I mean, where is the accountability?
This is what's been so infuriating. And, and I'm not going to be, I have a constructive thing. I'm not just going to say what we can't do, I promise. But I think it's important for folks to know what we have been doing. Particularly folks on the Armed Services Committee, Democrats, have been fighting this at every step. We've been pushing for more transparency, pushing for hearings and investigation, both on Signalgate and, of course, now on everything happening around these illegal boat strikes. I even introduced an amendment to the annual defense bill to say we shouldn't pay a single cent to Hegseth. We should strip him of his pay until there's an investigation and accountability for Signalgate. The Republicans have completely refused to have any accountability for Hegseth, or to have him come before us to testify publicly about this in any way. He's only come once before the House Armed Services Committee, which is outrageous. So what do we do about that? Number one, we have to continue to use all the official levers we have. The Republican House and Senate Republicans on the defense committees have said they want, quote, vigorous oversight. I do not trust that we will have that. We have not had it. So we need to continue to push them on that, but not expect that they'll do the right thing, because they're all just lockstep behind Trump, of course. So we need to take, what I think we need to do is take the case to the American people. I believe that we need to, and with your help, and I appreciate being on and being able to do this, we need to, if every American knows this, even the high level takeaways, if they see that bit on page 25 in that red box, that one sentence, they know that, they know what's going on, they see the second half of this video, and we just need to, we're going to start, for example, a nationwide effort to get a petition for Hegseth to be fired. Those kinds of, and I would welcome, if you're willing, like your help to get the word out about that. We need to have the people understand, because the president has shown us the power of the presidency and the president. We need to show that and use and leverage the power of the people. And I think that's like really seeing this as an organizing moment to rally not just Democrats, but every patriotic American, and particularly those that have served, knows that this is wrong. So I think that's a key piece of it. And look, if they refuse to do a real investigation, then there are additional escalatory steps that we can take. They're serious, but I think we're talking about those right now as well.
Well, I do want to ask you about that before I let you go. Let's say hypothetically next year, Democrats take back the House of Representatives. You all have the majority. You have the power of a subpoena, power to investigate. Until then, nothing happens to Hegseth. You just described a situation where if you leak this classified information via Signal, that would be a crime. To me, that sounds like a potential high crime and misdemeanor. Would this qualify as an impeachable offense, what happened with Signalgate?
we're having that conversation now, and I don't think you're wrong about that. I think we owe one more chance, particularly on the boat strikes where we're just getting information, which would certainly be a high crime and misdemeanor if he gave that order. Then I think it does rise to that level, and that's a serious thing. But there are several of us talking about that and thinking about that. I want to make sure we do that in the right way. And to me, the starting point is like, that's about making the case. And we can start now. We have the evidence. We have the evidence from the IG report now. We're getting more and more evidence from the boat strikes, and we're going to continue to push for that to come out. And I think it's on every person, every American that believes in our Constitution, to spread the word about this happening and make that case wherever we can, online and in conversation with family, and just say, hey, did you hear this? And then that builds the pressure for them to either do the right thing and fire Hegseth, or if we need to, for us to escalate to that step.
Congressman Ryan, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Hey folks, Aaron Parnas here. Thank you so much for watching The Parnas Perspective. Please consider subscribing to support our work as we grow this independent news media entity into something that rivals mainstream every single day. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.